I don't even know how to properly start this anymore, because even now, months after it all happened, just recalling the memory sends this dull ache through my chest, like something heavy pressing down on me. And it's not even fear at this point. It's something colder, something more permanent, like a shadow that never really leaves, no matter how far I move or how many times I try to tell myself I'm safe. I had been living alone for a little over 2 years in this 3-bedroom apartment that I originally shared with 2 of my college friends. But after they graduated and moved out, I decided to stay back because the rent was surprisingly affordable. And since I work from home, it just made more sense to hold on to a place I was already comfortable in, even if it started to feel a bit too quiet once I was the only one left. So, I turned one room into my bedroom, another one into a makeshift home office, nothing fancy, just a desk, a good chair, my editing setup, and the third room sort of just turned into what I called my storage dump. The kind of room that starts collecting things you don't need, but can't throw away. Like boxes you never unpacked, an old mattress from a guest who never came back, a broken lamp you keep meaning to fix, but never do. And honestly, I barely ever opened that door unless I needed to shove something in there quickly to make the living room look clean. Anyway, this one night, maybe 5 or 6 months ago, I remember it clearly because it was a Thursday, and I had just wrapped up one of those long, draining work days where your back hurts, your eyes sting, and you hate everything on your screen. So I ordered some KFC, sank into my chair in the office, threw on my headphones, and got lost in editing just to distract myself, hoping I could finish at least part of the project before I passed out from mental exhaustion. That's when I heard it for the first time. A soft sound, barely there, like a knock or a tap. And it wasn't coming from the office door or the hallway, but more like from the front door or maybe the wall behind the bookshelf. I couldn't place it exactly, but I paused what I was doing and just sat still, listening, holding my breath a little, waiting to hear it again so I could figure out if it was something real or just my tired brain playing tricks on me. But there was nothing after that, no follow-up sound, no movement, just that single, quiet noise. So I told myself it was probably from outside the building, or maybe the plumbing acting up again, the kind of sound you ignore when you live alone, because acknowledging it means inviting paranoia. And I shrugged it off and got back to editing, trying to force myself into a rhythm again. But about an hour later, closer to 2 a.m., I heard something again, and this time, it wasn't subtle. It was a low, heavy thud, like something falling or someone shifting weight on the other side of a door. And the sound came from the direction of that storage room, the one I hadn't opened in weeks. And immediately, my skin went cold, not because I believed someone was in there yet, but because I knew there was nothing in that room that should have made noise on its own. I stood up slowly, still holding on to that flimsy idea that maybe a box just collapsed or something tipped over on its own. And I walked across the apartment with this sinking feeling in my gut, opened the storage room door, flipped on the light, and just stood there in the doorway, scanning everything, waiting for something to look out of place. But nothing did. The boxes were still piled the way I left them. The mattress was still leaning against the wall at that awkward angle, and the closet doors were shut, just as I remembered. But even though the room looked exactly the same, it didn't feel the same. There was this stillness, like the air had weight, like the room had been disturbed, in some way I couldn't prove, but could feel deep in my chest. So, I did something I'd never done before. I locked the room from the outside. Not because I believed it would stop anything, but because I just needed to feel like I was doing something, anything, to take back control from this strange, creeping feeling that had started to burrow into me. And just when I thought the night was finally over, and I could convince myself I'd imagined the whole thing, just as I was about to shut everything down and crawl into bed around 3 a.m., I heard something that still makes me feel sick to remember. Someone coughing. Not outside the window, not in the hallway, but inside the apartment. It was faint, like someone trying not to be heard, like the end of a throat clearing that never quite made it out fully. But it was there, real, undeniably human, and for a moment, I couldn't even breathe, couldn't move. Just sat there in my chair, frozen, with this curtain rod in my hand that I'd grabbed without thinking, like it would actually do something if someone stepped out from behind a door. I checked the entire apartment, every room, every closet, under the bed, behind the shower curtain. Nothing. Everything looked untouched, just like before. And then I stood in front of the storage room again, staring at the locked doorknob, trying to decide whether I had the guts to open it or if I should just wait until morning. Call someone, maybe even leave the apartment altogether. But some part of me, some reckless, tired, angry part, decided I had to open it, even if just to prove to myself that there was nothing there. So I unlocked the door, stepped in, turned on the light. And at first glance, it looked just as unchanged as before. Boxes, mattress, old shelf, and then I noticed the closet door, the sliding one. It was open, just a crack, just enough to see blackness inside. My mouth went dry. I walked over, every step heavier than the last, raised the curtain rod like it was a sword, and yanked the door open in one fast, desperate motion. It was empty, just darkness and dust and the echo of my own breathing. I stood there for so long that my knees started to ache from locking up. And finally, when I couldn't take it anymore, I walked out, locked the door again, turned off the light, and collapsed into bed, telling myself I'd had too much caffeine, too much stress, too much alone time in a big apartment with too many shadows and not enough explanations. But then the next day, something happened that cracked whatever illusion of normalcy I had left. I ran into my neighbor downstairs, an older woman who lives across the hall and barely talks. But she stopped me by the stairs and said something that chilled me to the bone. She asked if someone had been visiting me the night before. I said no. Why? And she told me that around 2 a.m. she had woken up to use the bathroom and happened to glance out her window. And that's when she saw someone standing outside mine, the one near the bushes, my office window. She said the person wasn't moving, wasn't pacing or walking or doing anything, just standing, perfectly still, facing the glass, like they were watching. I laughed it off in the moment, because what else was I supposed to do? Tell her I thought someone was inside my storage room too? But inside, something in me snapped. And from that point on, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over, that it hadn't even started yet. And I was right. Because the next night, after trying to distract myself at a friend's place, after convincing myself I'd imagined everything, I came home a little before midnight, turned onto my street like I always do, and saw them. 3 people standing near my building, not together, spaced out, like they were watching from different angles, like they had positions, like this was something they had done before. They weren't on their phones. They weren't talking. They weren't moving. They were waiting. I ducked behind a parked car, heart hammering so loud I could hear it in my ears. And I called the police, whispering everything, my location, the figures, what had been happening. And just as I was giving them my exact address, one of the 3 started walking. Not fast, not slow, just this calm, deliberate pace, straight toward the car I was hiding behind. I panicked, ended the call, walked toward the side alley, slipped behind the garbage shed, and crouched there, trying to make myself invisible, praying I hadn't made a sound, holding my breath for what felt like forever. Eventually, I didn't hear footsteps anymore. Eventually, the cops showed up, and of course, by the time they did, the figures were gone. No trace left behind, no footprints, no explanation, nothing to prove they were ever really there, except the fear still stuck in my throat, like a stone I couldn't swallow. They told me maybe it was kids, or maybe some drunk people cutting through the neighborhood. But I knew that whoever they weren't just passing by. They weren't out for a walk. They were there for me. And if I had come home, even 5 minutes later that night, they would have already been inside. My name is Rian. I'm 18 years old, and if you ask me who my best friend is, I'll still say Sammy, without even thinking, because we grew up in the same neighborhood, went to the same school, attended the same tuition, even shared passwords, and for me, Sammy wasn't just a best friend. He was like my brother. That's exactly why, when things started to feel off, I noticed he began missing school randomly, didn't reply to my texts for hours, stopped coming to our regular hangout spots, and when he was around, he looked like he hadn't slept in days. Eyes sunken, face pale, like something heavy was weighing on him constantly. So I asked him one evening, "Bro, are you okay?" And he gave me a weak smile before saying, "Yeah, just family stuff." And I didn't push further because we all go through things sometimes, right? But I should have, because just 3 days later, I found out what Sammy was really hiding. It all started with a call. A Sunday afternoon, I was home alone, casually watching football highlights, when suddenly my phone buzzed, and I saw it was an unknown number. I picked up without thinking, and a deep voice, quiet but firm, spoke. "Tell Sammy we need it back." I blinked in confusion. "What?" But the voice didn't repeat, just one final line. "He's out of time." And then the line went dead. Click. I stared at the screen, completely confused, and instantly called Sammy. No answer. Tried again. Straight to voicemail. So I did what any best friend would do. I grabbed my bike and rushed to his house. His mom answered the door, smiling warmly at first. "Oh, Ryan, you're looking for Sammy?" I nodded quickly. "Yeah, is he home?" But then she frowned. "No, he told me he was with you." I paused, stunned. "He's not." And just like that, her face changed. The warmth disappeared and was replaced by real worry. She picked up her phone and called him immediately, but there was no response. And that was the first moment I felt something close to fear, like a cold chill had passed through me. That evening, around 9 p.m., I finally got a message from him. One single line, "Don't get involved, please." That's when I knew something was seriously wrong. I texted back 10 times, called again and again, but nothing. The next day at school, Sammy didn't show up. Neither did he the day after that. And then, on Wednesday, I got a DM from a burner Instagram account. No posts, no followers, no profile picture, no name, just one photo. Sammy, sitting on the floor, hands tied, eyes swollen. My breath caught in my throat. Below the image it said, "You have until midnight." I didn't go to the police, didn't tell my parents, I didn't even know what I was dealing with. All I knew was Brian Tasson, my best friend, was in trouble, and somehow they thought I could fix it. But I had no idea what it was. What had Sammy taken? Why were they coming to me? And then I remembered, 4 days ago, at school, Sammy had handed me a pen drive. Didn't say much, just looked at me and said, "Keep it safe, I'll explain later." At the time, I thought nothing of it. I hadn't even checked it, but now my hands were shaking as I pulled it out of my drawer and plugged it into my laptop. Inside, there was just one folder, password protected, named DB Backup 001. I didn't know the password. I tried the obvious stuff. Sammy one password, even his birthday, but nothing worked. I was just about to give up when I remembered something from way back in 9th grade. Sammy had this weird obsession with Greek mythology. His Wi-Fi name used to be Hades333. I typed it in. The folder opened. Inside, there were 18 video files. No titles, just timestamps. I clicked the first one. It looked like a hidden camera. The angle was tilted from the corner of a small room, low resolution, but clear enough. 2 men were arguing. One of them was Sammy. The other I had never seen before, older, aggressive, with a tattoo on his neck. "Where's the copy?" the man shouted. "I told you I don't have it," Sammy replied. Slap hard. The man leaned in. "If you try to play smart, we'll bury you before the weekend." I paused the video, heart racing, and clicked another one. Different day, same room. This time, Sammy was alone, looking straight into the camera. I don't know if I'll get out of this. I copied their files. All of it. Transactions, names, footage. If anything happens to me, give this to the police or a reporter. Just make it count. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Sammy had stolen evidence from some kind of underground operation. Something big, something dangerous. And now they thought I had it. And they were right, because by accident, I did. At 11 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. You have 1 hour left. I texted back immediately. I have it. Proof. I just want my friend back. No reply. I knew I had to do something, but where would I go? Who could I trust? I grabbed the pen drive, threw on a hoodie, and left my house with my bike. There was only one place that felt even slightly neutral, the old railway parking lot. It was always abandoned after 9 p.m. No cameras, no people, just space. I sent them a message. Meet me at the old train lot. Alone. Midnight. They replied, with a location ping. At 11:58 p.m., I stood under a busted street lamp, holding the drive tight in my palm. A car pulled in. Same silver sedan from the photo. 2 men stepped out. One of them, the guy from the video, the one who slapped Sammy, walked toward me. You, Rian? He asked. I nodded. Where's Sammy? He opened the back door. Sammy was inside, barely conscious, but alive. His eyes met mine, bloodshot and tired. The man held out his hand. Give it. I stepped forward and tossed the pen drive at his feet. He picked it up, examined it, then looked at his partner and said, Kill them both. I didn't wait. I ran, my legs moving before my brain could even catch up, while Sammy tried to move too, but he was too weak, slumped in the back seat, barely able to lift his head. And behind me, I heard the unmistakable click of a gun being cocked. A shot whizzed past my left shoulder. It missed, but only by inches, and I dove behind a pile of rusted rails stacked at the edge of the lot, heart hammering in my chest like it was about to explode. Another shot. This one hit the metal just a few feet from where I was crouching. I didn't have a weapon, not even a stick. Nothing but my phone and my instincts screaming at me to do something, anything. And then I remembered earlier that evening, while I was panicking, I had airdropped one of the videos to my phone. Just in case, and without wasting another second, I uploaded it to Google Drive, made it public, and shared the link with a single message. If I don't make it, send this to the police. Then I sent it to every single contact in my phone, friends, classmates, even teachers. Bang, another shot. This time it hit the rail inches from my leg. I clenched my jaw, about to make a run for it, when suddenly, sirens. Distant at first, but getting louder, closer, flashing blue lights appearing at the far end of the lot. The guys panicked, shouted at each other in a language I didn't understand, and without even bothering to grab Sammy, they jumped back into their car and sped off, tires screeching, headlights cutting through the darkness. I crawled out, my legs shaking, heart pounding, and rushed to the back seat of the car where Sammy was still lying, barely conscious. Sammy, can you hear me? He opened his eyes slightly, tried to smile. You came. Of course I came, idiot, I said, my voice breaking, as the sirens finally surrounded us. Red and blue lights spinning in every direction, tires skidding, doors slamming, police shouting, radios crackling, everything turning into a blur of noise and motion. They pulled me aside, questioned me, checked my ID, called in a paramedic for Sammy, and while they worked on him, I handed over the drive. Later, when we were safe, Sammy told them everything. He explained how his cousin was part of a trafficking ring, how he'd discovered it, and how, terrified but determined, he had started copying files, photos, videos, everything, in the hopes of leaking it to the media or the police. But they had found out. He was beaten, threatened, held in some basement, and before they could take everything from him, he gave me that pen drive, hoping I'd be the one to make it count. They traced it back to him, then to me. They thought I was a threat, or worse, a leak, and they wanted to erase us both. A month has passed now. Sammy is recovering, slowly, but he's alive. Some of the men were arrested, not all, but enough to shake the operation, enough to make a difference. We're both still scared sometimes, like when the doorbell rings unexpectedly, or when our phones light up with unknown numbers. But we survived. And more than anything, I've learned something real, something that no movie, no school, no book ever really teaches you. Sometimes, friendship means walking straight into fire. Sometimes, it means risking everything. No hesitation, no logic, just heart. And sometimes, it's the only reason you make it out alive. Let me tell you a bit about myself first. Ever since I was a kid, I never believed in anything supernatural. I only believed in things that had scientific proof. To be honest, I didn't even really believe in God, but something happened 2 years ago that made me keep thinking about these things again and again. Actually, it didn't happen to me. It happened to my cousin's sister, and I saw all of it happen live, right in front of my eyes. If I hadn't seen it for myself, I probably wouldn't have believed it either. For personal reasons, I can't share who we are. At the time, my cousin was 20 years old. She was always a cheerful and lively person, always smiling. Then one day, we suddenly got news that she was really sick. She had a fever and her body felt weak. At first, nobody took it too seriously. Even the doctor said there was nothing to worry about. I know all the details because their house isn't that far from ours, maybe just about 1 kilometer away. And since there weren't any men in their family, and her father was usually away for work, they always called me whenever something went wrong. From the start, every time her condition got a little worse, things would spiral down way faster than we expected. Some parts of the day, she'd be completely fine, like nothing was wrong. But out of nowhere, she'd start screaming in pain. Her fever would shoot up abnormally high, and we'd have to rush her to the doctor immediately. So my aunt asked me to stay over at their place for a few days. My cousin had her own room, but ever since she got sick, my aunt started sleeping in there with her. Around 2 or 3 in the morning, she'd suddenly wake up screaming, then burst into tears. At first, the doctor said it was just a nutritional deficiency and gave her a bunch of medicines. But none of them worked. A few days later, something new started happening. She began talking in her sleep, something she had never done before. But now, it was happening every single night. Eventually, it wasn't just while she was sleeping. She even started talking to herself when she was awake. The doctor said this kind of thing could happen in certain cases, but one day what she did, we were completely unprepared for. My aunt and I were in another room. I went over to check on her, and what I saw, I wasn't ready for it at all. She was standing there, holding a knife. The way she stood made it look like she was trying to defend herself from something invisible. I tried to take the knife from her hand, but she was gripping it so tightly that even with both my aunt and I trying, we couldn't get it out of her hand. It just didn't make sense for someone like her to have that kind of strength. After trying really hard and failing, I ended up slapping her, and right then, she fainted. Later, we took her to see a psychiatrist. They told us she was dealing with some mental health issues and that she should never be left alone. They also mentioned some phobias, though I don't remember the exact names now. Over time, her situation kept getting worse day by day. One of my aunt's relatives said he knew someone who was experienced with situations like this. He wasn't a doctor or a psychiatrist, so at first I didn't want to involve him, but we didn't really have any other options left. When we took her to see that man, she suddenly became restless just from seeing him. She didn't want to go near him at all, but we still forced her to. The moment she got close to him, she jumped on him and started choking him by the neck. It took 3 or 4 of us to pull her off. This time, her strength was even more intense. We somehow got her off him, and she fainted again. After that, we took her to another room, and that man called me in privately. And what he said, I was absolutely not ready to hear it. He told me, "We won't be able to save your cousin anymore." Hearing that felt like the ground just disappeared under my feet. We'd been watching her suffer all this time, but we never imagined it could end like this. Even the doctors hadn't said anything this serious. From the beginning, I didn't like or trust that man. So I scolded him and walked away. I didn't tell anyone at home what he had said because everyone was already so fragile. The next few days went on the same way. We'd often see her suddenly stand up from sleep, and after a few more days, her condition got even worse. She completely stopped eating or drinking. Her body turned into skin and bones. It just kept going downhill. And then one morning when my aunt went to wake her up, she wouldn't wake. After a while, we realized she had left us forever. Everyone was in tears, completely shattered. And in my head, all I could see was that man's face, the one who said we wouldn't be able to save her. The doctors and psychiatrists said she had a mental disorder. They said she had developed some phobias, though I still can't recall the exact names. But even now, one thing keeps haunting me. How did that man know she was going to die? I've thought many times about going back to see him, but after how I treated him last time, I haven't had the courage. Even now, I don't believe in supernatural stuff the way other people do, but some questions just won't stop chasing me. There's only one reason I'm sharing this story, because I have some questions for you. What really happened to my cousin? Where was all that unusual strength coming from? And how did that man know she was going to die? And should I go back to talk with him? I work nights at a small, kind of run-down hotel off the interstate, the kind of place people stay when they've been driving for too long and just need a bed. Not a vacation. It's not fancy, but it's quiet most of the time. And I actually like the night shift because there's usually only me at the desk and one other person working security or doing laundry somewhere in the back. The guy on duty that night was Mike, a big guy in his late 40s who's been here longer than I've been alive, so I never really worry about anything going wrong. It was close to midnight when he walked in. The door swung open slowly, and this huge guy stepped inside. I mean huge, not just tall, but broad, like he could block the whole hallway if he wanted to. He had this long, heavy coat on, even though it wasn't that cold, and his hair looked like it hadn't been washed in weeks. But the thing that got me right away was his eyes. He didn't look drunk. He didn't look high. But there was something off, too still, too locked on me in this way that made my stomach tighten. He didn't even say hello, just walked straight up to the desk and said, "I need room 617. I typed into the computer, pretending to check, even though I knew before I finished that we didn't even have a 617. Our highest floor is 4, and our rooms only go up to 4 to 20. I told him politely, "Sorry, sir, we don't have a room like that." He just stared at me. No blinking, no change in expression. I said, "I need 6 to 17. I explained again, a little slower, that there's no such room in this hotel. Maybe he had the wrong place. Maybe he meant a different number. He leaned closer to the counter and said it again, almost like he was testing me. 6, 17. Now, normally I'm patient with guests, even the weird ones, but he was making my skin crawl, and I could feel my pulse picking up. So I told him firmly, "Sir, I already told you, that room doesn't exist. You need to check your information." That's when his face changed, just a tiny twitch, like he'd been holding something in, and now it was leaking out. His jaw tightened, and his hands curled on the counter. "Don't lie to me," he said, and his voice dropped in this way that made me glance toward the back door, wishing Mike was standing there. I said, "I'm not lying. I'm telling you the truth. You need to leave." He didn't leave. Instead, he reached across the counter faster than I expected for someone his size and grabbed at my shirt, yanking me forward hard enough that my chest hit the wood. I yelled, shoved back, tried to twist away. But he was unbelievably strong, his grip like a clamp. Mike must have heard me, because suddenly he came barreling out from the hallway, shouting at the guy to let go. The man turned his head, just enough to see him, and I swear there was something almost satisfied in his eyes, like he'd been waiting for more of us to show up. Mike grabbed his arm, tried to pull him off me, but it was like trying to move a tree. The guy let go of me just long enough to shove Mike back against the wall, and then they were grappling, knocking into the desk, knocking over the computer monitor. Mike's a strong dude, but he couldn't get him under control. This man was fighting like it wasn't even about winning, just about not stopping. I grabbed the phone with shaking hands, but before I could dial, I saw that Mike had already hit the emergency call button by the door when he first came out. The police were on their way. It felt like forever, but in reality it was maybe 3 or 4 minutes before we heard sirens outside. Even with both of us trying to keep him in one place, the guy was throwing his weight around so hard that my arms felt like they were going to tear out of their sockets. When the police burst through the door, it took 3 of them to get him on the ground and cuffed. They let him out, still shouting about 617 like it was the only thing in the world that mattered. Mike and I just stood there, in the wreck of the front desk, both of us breathing like we'd run a mile. Later, one of the officers came back in to take our statements. He told us they'd run his name and found out he wasn't drunk or high, just severely mentally ill, with a history of wandering into hotels looking for that same non-existent room. Apparently, he'd been in and out of hospitals for years. I couldn't stop thinking about how calm he'd been when he first walked in, and how quickly that calm had snapped into something else. I also couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd said, "Don't lie to me," like he knew something I didn't. That night, when I finally got off shift, I walked past every single room on my way out, just to make sure there really wasn't a 617. I was just trying to make some extra money. After losing my full-time job at the bookstore, I signed up for a delivery app. Nothing fancy, just dropping off groceries or food, mostly late at night, when the city quiets down. It was easy money, and I liked driving with no traffic. One night, around 11:45 p.m., I got a delivery request from a place I didn't recognize. It was a quiet suburban neighborhood about 30 minutes outside the city. The app gave me the address, 42 Willow Drive. A small order, just 1 bag of groceries. When I got there, the street was almost completely dark. No streetlights, no movement, just rows of silent houses, the kind of place where people lock their doors early. Walled up in front of number 42, the porch light was on, but the curtains were shut tight. I walked up to the door with the bag and rang the bell. Nothing. I knocked. Still nothing. After a moment, I opened the app to call the customer, but before I could dial, I heard the door unlock from the inside. A man opened the door, just a crack. I couldn't see much of him, just part of his face, and a tired eye. He spoke quietly. "Leave it there." "All right," I said, placing the bag down. But then, before I turned to leave, he added, "You came to the wrong house." I paused. "This isn't 42 Willow?" He stared at me, for a second, too long. "No," he said. Then, closed the door. I backed away, confused. I looked at the house number again, 42. That's what it said, clear as day. I checked the app. It also said 42 Willow Drive. No mistake. I got back in my car and started the engine. That's when the app pinged with a message. "Order delivered to wrong location." A second later, another message. "Please confirm drop-off at 44 Willow Drive." I looked 2 houses down. Number 44 had no lights on at all. I felt stupid. I had gone to the wrong house, but something about that guy didn't sit right with me. I drove down to 44, dropped the bag at the doorstep, took a photo for proof, and left. About 10 minutes later, I stopped at a gas station. While filling up, I kept thinking about that man at 42, the way he said it. "You came to the wrong house." He didn't sound annoyed. He sounded worried. Back in the car, I opened the app and checked the delivery map again. The GPS had placed the pin exactly in front of 42, which means, the app had made the mistake, not me. That bugged me. So the next night, around the same time, I drove back to Willow Drive, just to see. The porch light at 42 was off, total darkness. But as I slowly passed the house, I saw something strange. The front window was slightly open. Behind the curtain, I saw a figure, a woman, maybe. Her eyes were wide, staring out, like she was silently calling for help. Then she disappeared behind the curtain. I stopped the car. Something wasn't right. I parked a block away and walked back, staying in the shadows. I looked around. No one. I walked up to the house and knocked again. This time, harder. Silence. Then, Footsteps inside. Slow, careful ones. The door didn't open, but I heard a faint voice from inside. A whisper. "Help me." That was enough. I backed away, heart racing, and called 911. I told them I thought someone was in trouble at 42 Willow Drive. I said I had seen a woman who might be being held there. The dispatcher told me to stay nearby, so I waited in my car, hands shaking. Within minutes, 2 police cars showed up. They knocked. No answer, but after a minute, they forced the door open. What they found inside still gives me chills. The house belonged to a man named Gerald Cooper. He lived alone, at least officially. But inside, in the basement, they found a woman chained to a pipe. Her name was Madeline Ross. She had been missing for 2 weeks. Her photo had been on the local news, but I hadn't paid attention at the time. She was weak, barely conscious, but alive. The man, Gerald, was arrested right there. Turns out he had a record: domestic abuse, harassment, a few restraining orders, but nothing serious enough to put him away. When they asked how I knew she was there, I didn't know what to say. I just delivered groceries. But the truth is, if that app hadn't glitched and sent me to the wrong address, she might never have been found. I gave my statement and went home that night in a fog. I couldn't sleep. The next day, my story was on the news. They called me a good Samaritan. Some people online called me a hero, but I don't feel like one. I feel lucky. Lucky that I saw what I saw. Lucky that she was still alive. Lucky that the guy didn't open that door all the way and pull me inside. I still do deliveries sometimes, but now I pay attention to every address, every face, every locked curtain. Because I learned something that night. Sometimes the wrong house is exactly where you need to be.